Hey, good afternoon to you. I just wanted to make about a 5-minute YouTube video and give you some information for the class that will be helpful to you. Um, Three of the biggest assignments that we do for this class is number one, I have you do a summary assignment where you present the same information in three different ways. The first way is sort of in a visual organizer or a cluster looking format where you present the information visually. And the second way that you do it is you write a summary of about 1,000 to 1,500 words. They're about 3 pages or so long. And the third way that you do it is you create a summary of a summary, so you present a more condensed format. And the point that I would tell you is sometimes you need to present the same information in different ways, or even using different formats. A former student works for a pediatric dentist, and so sometimes in presenting information to children, you have to make the information more dynamic and more colorful. And so I think that that's a good example to illustrate that particular point. Pat McCullough, who's the WCCC IT director, that does computers at the college and so on, he has a small business, and he used an example for us. Is his company was able to get a contract to unify the Pittsburgh, Allegheny County, city of Pittsburgh, and other municipalities along the river, their search and rescue and river services. And so, if there's a barge collision, or if somebody drowns, or that there's like a barge that gets hit, or a vehicle, or like a water vessel that gets hit and oil leaks out and so on, how they handle it. And so Pat's company was able to get that business, but he had to do some presentations. He had to do one at a conference room in the city of Pittsburgh, and there were some the participants that were there. And then he had to present it in other different ways. And so that's a good example of something that you have to present in multiple ways or in multiple formats. And same thing too at WCCC. We went from Campus Connections, the uh, email program a couple years ago, the portal, to our own WCCC portal. And I believe it might have cost $5 million, maybe. I don't. That number may be off, but they had to buy new servers. They had to get different types of equipment and so on. So they had to show that if we switch from Campus Connections and we go to this new portal, what are the pros and cons, or what are some of the benefits of doing it? But they had to initially present it to the technology committee at WCCC. They have president's council. They have a technology committee for the board of trustees. They have the full board of trustees. They have the faculty. So, the IT department had to present it in many different ways, in many different formats. And I think that helps to illustrate the point. So, the summary assignment is one that you will have to do. Another big assignment you have to do this semester is you have to do your own written instructions. And essentially what those are just, they're 3 to 5 pages. Some of them are longer. You have to use at least 5 visuals. But you have to explain to someone how to do instructions for something that you're good at. And in this class in the summertime, I had a student that was a baseball player, was a pitcher. And he showed how to throw a curveball and some other types of pitches. Very, very interesting. Some years back, I had a student in this class that did preparing a garden, making a vegetable garden. And actually, from those written instructions, I have a vegetable garden now. As a matter of fact, we're having cabbage today and cauliflower from my garden. And so it was very, very informative. But I've had students that were swimming instructors. But how do you deal with somebody who's drowning? Bring them out of the water, pull them out, revive them, and so on. I've had that. I had a student that did one as far as how to plan and organize a wedding from the perspective of a catering service. What all they've had to do. So I've had a variety of different ones. Somebody this summer was a very good auto detailer. He buys a new vehicle every 2 years, but his cars are the most cleanest, most impeccable vehicles I've ever seen. And he did as far as how to detail your vehicle. So, like I said, you can do baking, cooking, fixing, repairing something, explaining how to do something, and so on. But that's really what it is. And then the last big assignment that we have to do in this class is the consumer report. And with a consumer report, I mean, you're basically looking at a product that costs more than $100, and you have to look at three different brands of that product. So, like for example, if you were looking at an ebook reader, you could look at the Kindle, you could look at the Nook, and the Sony. There's a Sony ebook reader as well. You could compare three similar products. And the same thing too is if you were looking at half-ton pickup trucks, 4x4, quad cab. You could look at the Ford F-150. You could look at the Chevy Silverado 1500, and then you could also look at the Dodge Ram 1500. And then, of course, if you wanted, you could look at the Toyota Tundra. You just need to pick three of them, and then you have to use 4 points of criteria that you're going to evaluate, like the warranty, the reliability, as far as the design, or what they call ergonomics, as far as that goes, torque and pulling power. Whatever it is you want to evaluate, you have to evaluate 4 different points. But that's really what the consumer report is essentially is about. So that's what you will be working on, later in this class. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that. The two biggest areas that I really want to stress to you today, though, to be aware of is number one, your sentence level writing is very, very important in this class. I can't stress that enough. You need to have good, clear, accurate, specific writing. Technical writing is what I would call concisely descriptive, and that sounds like an oxymoron, but it's not. But you want to use descriptive writing. And what you want to do as well is if you use jargon or technical language, try to explain it in the context of the language it's used. And that is very, very helpful to do. You can also use what's called figurative language, which is like a simile. So you can use like or as to make a comparison. Because I had a student that did written instructions a couple years ago, and he said the grout in these, when you are doing ceramic tile, should feel like the texture of fine sand. That was a good way to do it. You can use a metaphor, and you can make a comparison without like or as. And of course, you can use an analogy. An analogy gives a comparison between something unfamiliar to something more familiar. And the example that I can think of is like if you're explaining to someone who's unfamiliar with how a computer network works for a large organization, the best analogy you can use is like of an interstate highway system, as far as, for example, when I lived in California, there was I-5, and it went, basically from Southern California, up through the state. And so, but you have the main interstate, but then you have branches that go off the other interstates and other highways. So you have the main hub or the main network, and it branches off. And the same thing that you would do with a computer network, like at WCCC, we have our main computer network at the main campus, but then we also have it replicated in a couple other locations. So if there was ever a fire, a flood, or something else, we have all this data and all this information at several locations. But we also have campuses in New Kensington. We're in Latrobe. We're down in Mon Valley. We're at the Bushy Run Center. So we're spread out. We're in Indiana. We're in Greene County. So we're spread out in these different locations. And then we're at the Public Safety and Training Center down in Smithton. So, the whole network has to be connected, and it has to be cohesive and has to work together. So, that's an example, that I wanted to mention. I also wanted to tell you, obviously, format is important, and I've talked about that before. Your content makes a big difference, but, think about this. If you write a document, you have headings, and you have subheadings, and then even if you use bullets with white space, your format makes a difference. When you do written instructions, if you have like tips or notes, or if you want to stress something, you can use capital letters at times. You can use a red font. You can use a yellow highlighter. It all helps to make the information stand out more and be useful to the user of the document. So your sentence level writing and your format is important. And the only other item that I wanted to mention to you is don't ever be afraid to make mistakes, because everybody makes them. Write as well as you can. Try to give the information as accurately as you can. If you can have a colleague or someone else look at your writing, that's obviously to your advantage. But do the best that you can with the information that you have. But the point that I would stress to you is timeliness is more important than 100% accuracy. If you're going to wait till you get every single detail accurate, you're never going to get things done. You just have to keep moving along and keep moving forward and do the best you can. And obviously use technology. Use Word to make, in Word, or if you're using Open Office, spell check. Use the thesaurus. Do that more. In this particular class, you can use the ebook through My Tech Com Lab, and so you can look at information electronically, and so that's helpful. So even as you go forward, use like GoToMeeting.com, or there's like WebEx. There's a lot of other tools that you can use, Skype, to communicate with people. So use technology more effectively. So that's basically what I wanted to talk about today. Thanks.